TIFU by taking a DNA test with my brother. This literally happened yesterday, or at least the conclusion up until now did. Me and my brother took 23andMe tests for fun around Christmas time. When the results came back, it suddenly showed us as being half-siblings. Which, thinking on it now, makes sense, as I have dark hair and blue eyes and am relatively thin. He, on the other hand, has blonde hair and green eyes and is of a stocky build. Confusion aside, we had completely different paternal haplogroups. Now, growing up, I never had any clue or reason to believe the man who raised me was not my biological father. So last night I confronted my mother about it. At first it was flat denial, and she claimed the test had to be wrong, but after some pushing and prodding, she did admit that my real father is not in fact the man who raised me. My real father was a drifter and an alcoholic who was raised in the foster system and who never knew his real family. He wanted me aborted when he found out my mother was pregnant with me. My mother described him as a deeply lost person, but also as an extremely intelligent individual, but the foster system left him broken. She apparently tried when I was a baby to let him forge a bond with me, but he had very little urge to do so and eventually threatened to kidnap me and drop me off somewhere. He worked a variety of jobs in the oil industry of Louisiana and later became a worker for carnivals. He died in 2008 when I was 19 from liver damage. Apparently the state wanted me to identify the body at that time, but she stepped in and put a stop to it because he had given up his parental rights when I was young. So now I know who my real father is, but all I have is a name, a date of birth, and a date of death. And due to him not knowing any of his family from being raised in foster care, I have no idea if I have any living family on my biological father's side. This kind of saddens me because my entire life I have been very into my heritage and tracing family tree. TLDR, took DNA test and found out my father was never actually my biological father. And my biological father was an alcoholic who wanted nothing to do with me. And I have no way to see if any family remains on that side. I went through the same exact experience 3 years ago. Felt like my world was completely shape-shifted. Then it suddenly made sense why I didn't look like my dad and why I had always felt like a black sheep within my family. I have gone through therapy which helped to make sense of things. And like you, I respect my dad, the one who raised me, even more now. He went the extra mile to have a family. Respect. If you ever want to reach out to chat, feel free to message. Wait, the state wanted you to identify his body? When you didn't even know him? Just because he's not your biological father doesn't mean he's not your real dad. Please don't think of him as lesser. He's the man who stepped up and helped raise you. I have a daughter that came with my marriage 20 years ago. She was 23 months old at the time. She's 22 now. She is, and always has been, my little girl, and I love her more than my own life. She knows her biological dad, but there's not much of a relationship there. Yesterday she asked me to walk her down the aisle for her wedding. Please go give your real dad a hug and tell him you love him and you're glad that he is your dad. It will mean more to him than you could possibly imagine. That sucks. But, you know, he might have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. If it was me, I wouldn't let it throw me much. My mom's dad left her mom, and her siblings for the babysitter when my mom was an infant. The man who raised her is the only man I know as my grandfather. Even though my bio grandpa was alive my whole life. Most people don't even know he was my stepdad. I learned all about his family history. He was Polish, and my sisters only do genealogy on him. He is my mom's dad. He raised her and brought her family out of poverty. He played games with me and I climbed his plum tree in his backyard every summer. He provided me family love and life. Not the pretender of a dad who tried to make amends with all of us at the end of his life. Fuck that guy. He didn't deserve the title dad. So the man you thought was your dad. What does he say about this? Were they married at the time? Do you have any other half-siblings out there? Or any trace of your bio-dad's ancestry? What do you want to know at this point? Because this is a big deal. Biological family can be overrated. Good odds you've got loads of half-brothers and half-sisters you could find by hanging around with the carnies. There are loads of kind people out there that work tirelessly and for free to try reconnect people with their genetic families. I have had a family member make contact in this way. I would see if there are any Facebook groups connecting families and see if someone could help or point you in the right direction. Good luck. I'm not sure if you knew this, but there's a free system you can upload your DNA results to and it compares them to results from other companies. It might give you an extra chance of finding relatives. It's called GED Match. I did a test with Ancestry and uploaded the results to it. He's just a sperm donor. The one who raised you is your father. He was your father only. It took a lot more for another man to become your dad. Would like to share with you a story. I'm female, born 1963. Days after my birth, my mother had a significant breakdown and went away for about 4 years. My older brother and sister were 8 and 5 respectively. My father couldn't care for all 3 of us and placed me in the care of his parents. They were wonderful and very good to me. At 4, when my mother was released from the institution, I returned to my nuclear family. The transition was so difficult and manifested as my distance, aloofness, and inability to connect, etc. In 8th grade, my grandmother passed. It was then I realized on some level that she was my mother. I agonized over her death and missed her deeply. Shortly thereafter, my grandfather passed. Again, only to a lesser degree. I felt as though I had then lost both parents. These weren't conscious thoughts but a feeling of being untethered and on my own. Disheartening to a high school student. My biological mother was buried Valentine's Day last week. She was mentally ill her entire life. We had absolutely no relationship. Spoke 5 times or so throughout my life since 16 yo. And it hurts in the oddest way. I'm mourning the relationship that never was. I sobbed briefly for that little girl who just didn't understand. I learned in preparatory classes for nursing all about developmental stages, milestones. It was then I understood. We simply never had the chance to develop a nurturing, protective maternal bond. I already had one and our time had passed. So her failure to connect with me as a baby was a developmental circumstance, not her fault and, more importantly, not mine. Even more interesting, a woman, granted my grandmother, was late 60s or so, able to forge a maternal relationship without missing a beat. I suppose my point is one about your dad. It isn't so much that he stepped up and accepted another man's son. Although laudable, he was there when you needed to reach that paternal bond milestone. That makes him your dad. A note about your mother. She will likely be questioning her decisions over the years, especially effectively lying to you for 33 years. Let her have this one. Once you are there, be sure and let her know she and Dad have raised a good man. One who would never presume to have better answers for a 33-year-old decision mostly faced alone. Your mother has obviously struggled with this and deserves the widest berth you can emotionally afford. As to your biological father, well, carnival worker with liver failure and unknown birth history. That's a little tough but could probably be done should you so desire. Just remember, You are the same man with the same history than before you learned of this information. Take time and process. Talk to your brother, father and mother. Remember what matters most. Good luck. I hate to be cynical, but since your mother was okay with possibly never telling you, do you trust what she says about your bio dad at face value? Could anyone else corroborate that he indeed did threaten to kidnap you and whatnot? If he's passed, but I wouldn't write off the character of the man completely without some more testimony. Son, she said, have I got a little story for you. Bro, it's not the man who does the deed that gets the title of father. It's the person who sacrificed for you, spent sleepless nights for you, raised you, spent time with you, showed the world to you. That's who your father was. So it turns out you originally from a different family. So what? What matters is you were raised in a loving home. And regardless of what your tests say, you've spent the last 30 years of your life knowing who your dad was all along. The 23andMe website lets you look for relatives. I've heard that other genealogy websites will let you import your results to search for more family. 23andMe also gives results for the father's line even if you're female. Well, on the bright side, you said you're very into genealogy and tracing family roots. Now you have a whole new lineage to look into. Might be interesting. My son's mother lied to him about me for 8 years. I don't mean to brag, but I'm an exceptionally loving and sensitive father. My son and I have a great relationship. There was no reason to hide him. None at all. I wonder what she would have told him if I died before I found out. Keep an open mind. Nobody is 100% good or 100% bad. People that do fucked up things are usually both. Goes for both your father and your mother. Maybe you could learn more for yourself somehow.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.